Someone you can't forget is beginning to realize that you are irreplaceable. There comes a moment in life when silence becomes louder than words. When someone who once thought they could walk away from you without consequences suddenly finds themselves haunted by your absence. They may not admit it. They may continue pretending that everything is fine. But deep inside, something has changed. The person you can't forget is beginning to realize that you were never as easy to replace as they imagined. At first, they believed time would erase the memories. They distracted themselves with work, friends, social media, and new experiences. They convinced themselves that moving on would be simple. But the strange thing about genuine connections is that they don't disappear just because someone decides to ignore them. Instead, they quietly remain in the background, waiting. Now, they notice little things that remind them of you. A familiar song, a place you once visited together, a conversation that sounds like one you used to have. Even the smallest details unexpectedly bring your memory back into their mind. And every reminder makes them ask the same silent question. Did I lose someone I should have fought for? What they are beginning to understand is that your value wasn't obvious while you were always there. Your kindness, your patience, the way you listened without judging, the way you made ordinary moments feel meaningful. Those qualities are incredibly rare. People often recognize true value only after it's missing. The space you left behind cannot be filled by someone else. Because people can replace attention. They can replace conversations. They can even replace routines. But they cannot replace a soul that made them feel understood. That is why they keep comparing everyone they meet to you. Without realizing it, they measure new connections against the comfort they once felt with you. And somehow, no one quite matches. This realization doesn't always happen overnight. Sometimes it takes weeks, sometimes months, sometimes even years. Growth has a way of revealing truths that pride once covered. The distance that once felt like freedom slowly begins to feel like regret. For the first time, they start seeing the relationship from your perspective. They remember the effort you made, the chances you gave, the moments you stayed when walking away would have been easier. And suddenly, your actions make sense. What once seemed ordinary now feels extraordinary. Meanwhile, something else has changed. You are no longer waiting in the same place. Whether you realize it or not, you've been growing. You've learned to protect your peace. You've stopped chasing explanations that never came. You've started rebuilding your confidence one day at a time. Your energy is different now, and people notice, including the one who couldn't forget you as easily as they expected. There is something powerful about someone who quietly chooses healing over revenge. You didn't become colder. You became wiser. You stopped begging to be appreciated. And that quiet confidence speaks louder than words ever could. Ironically, it is often at this stage that the other person begins questioning everything. They wonder if they made the biggest mistake of their life. They wonder whether you found happiness without them. They wonder if they still have a place in your heart. Because losing someone who genuinely cared creates a kind of silence that success, attention, or temporary excitement cannot easily replace. Not every story ends with reconciliation. And not every realization leads to a second chance. Sometimes the greatest lesson comes too late. But whether they return or not isn't the most important part of this story. The most important part is what you've become. You discovered your own strength. You learned that your worth was never dependent on someone else's ability to recognize it. And that is something no one can take away from you. So if you've been wondering whether the person you can't forget ever thinks about you, the answer may not be as simple as yes or no. But people rarely forget those who changed their life in meaningful ways. Real connections leave lasting impressions. They shape us, they teach us, and sometimes they return to our thoughts exactly when we least expect them. Because the people who truly matter are never remembered by force. They are remembered by the feeling they left behind. And perhaps, somewhere at this very moment, someone you can't forget is finally realizing that you were never meant to be just another chapter in their life. You were the chapter they still can't stop rereading. Welcome to Psychology Facts. If you're curious about the hidden truths of the mind and heart, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon. so you never miss the facts that could change the way you see life.